Hey everyone, Mango7Roll here. How we doing today? Welcome to another episode of Epic 7, and today's a really exciting one. We're gonna go over the new ML5 selector, something I thought they would never do, and this is the first 6 that were released at the start of the game that you're gonna get to choose one from. It's gonna be Emil Ken, Judge Kise, Spectre Tenebria, Arbiter Vildra, or the 2 not on this table that I don't have, Ruela of Light and Dark Corvus. So if you're interested in finding out which you should take in what situation and why, feel free to keep on watching. But before you do, our sponsor of the day is NordVPN, and you have 9 hours, 31 minutes, and 53 seconds as of this video to claim this deal. And it's a service I've used quite a while now. It's used for a lot of things. Like, some people use it for Netflix to kind of change which region you're in. If you're in Canada, change it to the US where they actually have good shows. Tons of stuff like that, cheap air flights, all those shenanigans that I'm sure you've heard a ton. But the thing that I personally use it for is whenever there's a game I want to try out that's not available in Canada. You can try out games in Japan, in Korea, in China, all those things that aren't usually available, that kind of block you by IP. And that's what I use this for. And of course, 68% off for a 2-year deal. And you can see information secure. You all know it's secure, right? Protects devices, hides your stuff. Because it's in Panama, they also don't have logs. So depending on what you're doing, you can hide that. Look, even PewDiePie likes it. And of course, $371 per month to grab this 2-year plan, and it is insane actually for this value for something you'll use very regularly. So what are you waiting for? Get the 68% off in the link description below. Make sure you use my link. It helps me out so flipping much, and when it helps me out, guess where that goes to? It goes straight to gacha pulls. It goes straight to mystics. You know the deal. So thank you so much. Make sure you get it in the link description below. Enjoy. Okay, let's get into this, and we're going to start off from worst to best in terms of what I think you should take, and I'll just give my personal opinions and thoughts on them. Do note that a lot of this is waifu based as well. If you like somebody a lot more than somebody else, feel free to take them, and also stuff can change pretty easily as well. You never know when somebody's going to be buffed. I feel like the further down at the start of this list somebody is, it's going to be more likely for them to get buffed, which could completely change everything. But I think they're pretty set in stone for a bit here. So let's just start off with what I think is the least useful of the 3 or of the 6. So that's Judge Kise. And this is a little unfortunate for me to say because she's one of people's most liked design units. I really can't figure out why, to be entirely honest. But yeah, and she is super great in terms of her kit, but there's just a lot of other people that do similar things. There's a lot of other people that do what she does better. So if you're not familiar with her kit, let's go over that. To start with, her imprints here are effectiveness and attack percent. She has defense down on her skill 1, which goes up to 35, 50, 60%. She's got a skill 2 that gives her an extra turn when it's burnt, which is part of her cleave that she's generally used for. And this will have a 75% chance to dispel 1 buff from each enemy. So not 100%, which is definitely something that kind of hampers her usefulness here. Her best skill, I think, which is her skill 3, it's a 55% chance base up to 65, 75% chance to increase the skill cooldown 3 times by 1 turn. So in general, with Judge Kise, you're going to be opening up with your skill 2 with somebody with a TANGO'S book on your team. And then you're gonna do a skill 3 as well. There's a couple ways to use her too. I personally have tried her exceptionally fast, but I feel like there's so many better options for that right now. So a lot of people do use her as a cleaver where they oxlots her up, and then skill 2 and skill 3, and don't even really worry about the debuffs. They just use her as like a super huge damage dealer. But the thing is, I feel like somebody like Landy does that better. I feel like there's a ton of cleavers that do the same thing but better, and there's a ton of debuffers that do the same thing but better. But like I said, she's got a great kit, and one single buff to her could change everything. But as it stands, she sits at the 6th slot of who you should pick in this ML5 selector. Number 5 on the list is Emil Ken, who was once the most wanted character in the game and super overpowered right at the start. Everybody wanted him. He was literally the best at the start. He was like unstoppable for a bit. but I think he's fallen out quite a bit now, especially since we're getting units like Landy where he can't counterattack, and units like Senya that don't crit, that kind of counteract his skill set. So to start things off with, he has a 50% chance to decrease attack for 1 turn. You can upgrade it. And then you have Dragon's Flame, which is his bread and butter here. This basically has a huge % chance to counterattack, and if he's crit, he will counterattack and do a boatload of damage back. As for his skill 3, it's an AoE defense break with a 75% chance to defense break, and also increases the attack of the caster for 2 turns, so you can use this and then sit there and hope he gets countered, and then he does a bajillion damage back. He's often paired with Sigurd's Scythe, which will give him lifesteal, and he'll go from like 10% HP all the way up to full, so he's really good at soloing units. But the problem is he's also really easy to stop. And I don't think there's too many spots for him right now in the meta. He's obviously still really great in Guild War offense and stuff like that, but you also have to remember a lot of people have stuff like Little Queen Charlotte that just decimate him, and there's just not too many situations where you want to use him right now, in my opinion. And especially, like I said, with Landy, stuff just cancels out his whole kit, which is kind of unfortunate. The main way to build him is just a boatload of crit damage, a boatload of attack, and just have him sit there and kill everybody on their counterattack. I've tried him personally with effect resistance, and I'm just not a fan of it because it just didn't seem consistent enough, didn't heal enough back, again, especially with people like Landy, making it so he takes damage but doesn't counterattack back. There's a ton of decreased hit chance and everything too, which makes him not really heal so much as well, and overall he's just lost a lot of power. I do think he's still a fantastic unit, and I don't think he's really in the range of somebody who will get a buff soon, because I think he is pretty good as is, just nothing super duper special. This next one is really tough for me. I wasn't sure who to put in this position, and that is a tie between Ruela of Light and one other person, which we'll get to in a second. And the reason why I chose Ruela of Light is because the other just seems to guarantee so many things in Guild War offense and just make it so much easier. But I think if you're a more active player that perhaps likes to do RTA a lot more, this Ruela of Light might jump into the next spot for you. So she has a heal on her first skill. She has a dispel, a barrier, and it just does everything for her second skill. And her third skill here, she recovers health, grants them invincibility. It's insane, revives them and everything. So she's basically an insanely helpful support that will like just grind you through battles forever. And if you have her on defense, which a lot of people do, will make it very difficult for them to take down your defense. I also see her used a lot in RTA. That's not something I personally do too much, but you can check out a bunch of other RTA videos and you can see her used all the time there, which is why I think she might kind of beat out the next one if you're an RTA player. In general with her, we have her imprints as well, health. Unfortunately, she doesn't have an effect resistance imprint concentration, which I think does hurt her quite a bit, because you do generally want to build her with a boatload of ER, and you really, really, really want the self-ER imprint for those characters. And I really think she's great. She's definitely an option, especially if you have some of the further ones on the kit. I do think she doesn't really have a place in PvE, specifically because light and dark units don't really do much there. But if you ever have a dungeon that's really hard, maybe she pops in and does something there, but that's not something I would really consider. The other thing with her is I just personally think there are too many counters to this style of unit. So for example, we have Lulika with Extinction. We have all of the Extinction things. We have a ton of Dispels to kind of stop the invincibility here if that's a problem as well. There's just so much that kind of neutralizes her in terms of new units. And that's the thing here. We're getting a ton of new units to counter anything that revives, specifically because one other person future on into this list is kind of a problem, right? So I would lean on picking the other one instead of this one. I'm personally picking the other one, I think. I'm still not sure, instead of this one. But yeah. And the other thing, actually, this is a huge boost to her as well. she is getting a skin for the next or this PvP season. So if you care about that, you'll get to use her in a skin and not have to look at her face in this picture because it's kind of awkward. And the next one on the list, which is the one that kind of shares a spot with Ruel, is Dark Corvus. He's got a huge provoke on his skill 1, also absorbs a little bit of health back, 75% chance of the provoke there. He then has a 100% chance to decrease the skill cooldown by 1 turn, or 2 if he gets crit. And Mulligors are something you're going to have on him, so it's going to be 100%. And this is kind of the key to his skill. Like, he wouldn't work without this passive. And then his skill 3 is just a literal boatload of damage. Absolute boatload of damage here. -1 turn cooldown. Goes down to 8 turns, but again, you combo it with this and it just does insane damage. And of course, you can burn for 10 souls, which is exceptional. And this is going to one-shot a lot of units. Like a lot of units. Almost all of them, honestly. Which means you can use him in Guild War offense and just use a super, super, super tanky team. Tons of healing on that team, tons of sustain, and you have Dark Corvus with a ton of ER unable to be buffed, and you'll just grind them down with this burn. It almost, like, when I look at my guild personally and look at what people attack with, and I see people with Dark Corvus, their win rates are definitely higher than those without it, because he's honestly a free win a lot of times in Guild War if he's geared right. And the reason why I put him above Ruel is simply because of that. Just the ease of use of Dark Corvus makes him just so good, so reliable. I also see him used in RTA a little bit in Guild War defense, but I'm not sure how well he performs there. And the other cool part about Corvus that he does have going for him is he's a natural 4-star, his regular version. So you're going to be able to triple S him right off the bat to get an extra 18% health. So everything about him is really great, and I wouldn't be concerned with taking him over any of the other previous 3 on this list. No way, no how, because he's just so stable of a unit. As for number 2, and this is actually a tough one for me. I wasn't sure which to put. Obviously, you know there's only 2 left. And I feel like I have to put Spectre Tenebria here at number 2 instead of number 1. I want to put her at number 1. I love her VA. I love everything about her. But number 1 is obviously bonkers, and everybody should have him, and everybody will have him after this. So Spectre Tenebria has a really unique passive that gives her permanent stealth and makes it so she can never be targeted when somebody else is alive. She also increases the attack and defense by, I believe, 9%. No, 10%. That makes more sense whenever somebody dies. So this is really cool. 50% attack and defense boost makes her super sturdy and super damagey. And the stealth makes it so she's never dying first unless somebody just pure AoEs her down. He also has a skill 1 here, attacks with an explosion of poison. Poison doesn't do much in PvE or PvP, but it does make her viable in a lot of PvE as well. She's the best unit on this list. I'm thinking to myself to make sure this is correct. Yeah, she's the best unit on this list for PvE as well, specifically higher levels of Abyss. She can replace Curious and often be better than Curious in that too. And her skill 1 attacks 2 enemies when her skill 3 is on cooldown, which is great. It also cannot trigger a counterattack, which means it's exceptionally good against number 5 on this list, which was Emil Ken, and also exceptionally great on people with like a counter set Landy or something like that too. And then her skill 3, Endless Nightmare, is a stun for 1 turn, decrease the combat readiness of all remaining enemies by 50% if you kill it, and damage dealt increases proportionate to the number of debuffs inflicted on the enemy. And this does massive damage. It's often enough to kill somebody straight up. And if you combine her skill 3 and then her next turn proc your Soulburn effect here, you get 2 AoE attacks, and it just slaughters everything. Like, it just absolutely decimates things. She's really good with other defensive heroes. Like, for example, if you pair her up with like a Ruela of Light and somebody who decreases AoE damage or something like that, or like an FCC or Lilius or anybody like that, she's gonna stay alive, and if she dies, you can revive her, make Chloe as well, and she's just gonna decimate everything. She's really useful in Guild War offense, and I've seen her used in defense, although I personally take her out pretty easily with Landy. But she's also fantastic in Guild War because in RTA rather, because she is just so good. And with RTA, things go turn by turn, and the thing with turn by turn is you can really plan out her soul burn effect, which gives her an extra turn, like I said, and this allows you to just pop like 4 people at once. You just soul burn, and just go absolutely ham. I think the reason why I'm putting her second on the list instead of first is because the next one is just so good everywhere. Literally everywhere, and we'll talk about that in a second. So yeah, Spectre Tenebra, I would definitely not fault anybody for taking this over number 1 if they prefer waifu, because that's super okay. And honestly, you'll get similar use out of both of them, assuming you give Spectre Tenebra good enough gear. And she does need pretty good gear. You want her semi-fast with enough durability not to die to a single AoE, and lots and lots of damage. The other cool thing is, if you need to, she can hold a Tagael's Tome because she is a mage. So let's get on to number 1. Everybody knows what it is, and this is who you really should be taking if you do not have him. It's Arbiter Vildra. Arbiter Vildra is absolutely ridiculous and oppressive, and it's to the point where he is nerfing every other person in the game because they accidentally get nerfed by attempted countering of Arby. Like, for example, ML Haste and Luluka and all of those people kind of countering his revive ended up nerfing Meg Chloe to the ground. He also makes it so you just can't play against him with certain people because he'll just kill them, and there's nothing you can do about it. So as for his kit here, his skill 1 here, it decreases combat readiness by 15%, and it hits 2 people. The second one is a revive, and you don't actually even need Molagora on this if you don't want to, but I do obviously recommend it. This makes it so he revives with 70 to 100% HP and full combat readiness, which means he's going to go next almost every single time in outside of extreme situations. And he'll have his skill 3 up again, which is just bonkers. And it's got full focus, and his skill 3 is just a boatload of damage, decrease hit chance for 2 turns with 100% chance, and increases the damage on this. And on top of that, if you defeat an enemy, and you probably are going to, you don't get a cooldown on the skill. And on top of that, he's got a 10 soul burn, which makes it so it does boatloads of damage in Guild War offense and or RTA. The other cool part about Arbiter Vildra here is he can use the best artifact in the game, which is Alexa's Basket, which is going to give him a greater attack buff or greater crit buff 40% of the time, I believe. Very often going to be greater attack buff, and if you get a greater attack buff turn 1 and proc a Dark Blade, somebody's going to die. And if Arbiter Vildra dies and you get a greater attack buff and get a Dark Blade with the extra damage with the soul burn, they're dead, which is super impressive. The other cool thing about Arbiter Vildra is he is insane at farming, especially with the new update that's coming into the game where we're going to be able to use max level heroes. He's probably going to be your best option for faster PvE farming as well, because he just, again, does so much damage. You clear a wave, your skill 3 resets, you clear a wave, skill 3 resets, you clear a wave, game over. Like, it's bonkers how good he is. As for new players too, he's definitely the best for PvE. He's gonna speed everything up. He's just so good for that. On top of that, for PvE, he's also good for a lot of Abyss stages just because he does so much damage, and he's resilient because in PvP you're generally not going to be able to use Dark Contract twice, but in PvE it's something that does come up and will come up for those longer stages. And it's just so durable, even though he is squishy generally. And speaking of squishy generally, the other good part about Arbiter Vildra is you can literally build him however you want. He is so good that you can build him one of like 5 ways, I think, that are fantastic. You can build him one really fast with high damage stats, as fast as you can get him. For example, I have mine at 255 speed, which is obviously a lot, and like 4,200 attack and 280 crit damage, and that's insane. You can also build them really slow and tons of damage and have them at like 150 speed if you want, and 350 crit damage and 4,700 attack if you have the god gear, and he's gonna kill you. And the cool thing about this is if he doesn't get a turn right off the bat, he's going to revive and then just decimate everybody. You can also pair him with somebody like Lilius, and if you get a dual attack with Lilius here, he's going to hit 2 people with his skill 1, which is just great. And he also, again, this is so important, he has decreased hit chance for 2 turns, which is something that just completely neuters the enemy team, and 100% chance is insane. And the people you're targeting with this are often going to have like little to none ER, so he doesn't need any effectiveness to land it. It's really, really nuts how much he debuffs considering how much damage he does. They're really, really, really underlooked, these 2 debuffs attached onto it. I guess it's because he just kills somebody most of the time. So on top of that, you can also build him counter. You can build him super durable with 15,000 defense or like 1,300 or 15,000 HP, 1,300 defense. These are again higher level numbers. If you're a lower level player, just scale the stats down a little bit. On a counter set with Moonlight Dreamblade, and this again allows you to proc dual attack or double attacks, or no, counter attacks. You'll get there, Mango. That hit 2 people. So if somebody attacks him, he's got 2 counter attacks that hit 2 different people there. That's just really, really good. Or you could build him counterattack with lower defensive stats and just boatloads of damage and surprise people. You can build him regular speed, somewhere at around 200 to 220, and tons of attack or tons of bruiser stats. It's just insane how much like variation he has, and that's one of the dangerous parts about him, because you never know which one of those you're going to face, and each one you kind of need different solutions to. And sometimes one unit that counters a specific RB will not counter the other. For example, a good example of this is when I sometimes go to cleave an Arbiter Vildra with my Landy. I will skill 2 my Landy up and burn her skill 3, and then RB isn't on Greater Attack Alexa's Basket. He's instead on Moonlight Dreamblade, and I miss, and then I kill him next turn, and then I die because I wasn't expecting the MLDB. I was expecting to kill him first turn and then pop him before he gets revived, because my Landy has an extra turn. So that's just one real world example where the multiple different builds cause so much problems. The other thing is usability. You can use him in RTA, you can use him in Guild War offense, you can use him in Guild War defense. Not only use him, but he's pretty much like best in slot for a lot of these. You can use them on arena offense, you can use them on arena defense, you can use them in all sorts of PvE. Absolutely insane unit, and I honestly can't believe he's stayed at this strength for a while, and I think he's going to stay at this strength for basically ever until they make somebody better than him. The reason being, due to nerfs and stuff, they don't want to give people what this video is about, an ML Selector. So yeah, those are my top 6 lists. I don't know if I gave enough information about this. If I didn't, let me know in the comments down there below, but I really think your first 2 choices should be Arby or Spectre Tenebria. If you already have Arby, I really think you should take Tenebria, unless you really just want an absolute solid Guild War offense unit, in which case you should take Dark Corvus. And then if you have Spectre, Tenebria, and Arby, which I believe a lot of people already do, just pick who you want at that point, right? Like, this is more so for the new players. So yeah, I hope this helped you out. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe as always, and I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.